breaking news from the Decision Desk. NBC News can now project that Donald Trump has won the state of Wisconsin, which means he is the winner of this race and will return to the White House as this country's 47th president. And for so many of you watching right now, that news is, to say the least, a lot to digest. I understand that personally.
Before we get started, please remember to like the video and to share your comments. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. This has to be the most historical election of my lifetime. The greatest comeback story in the history of politics. Like most of you, I was watching the election that night. And it was quite an evening. They did call my current home state of Florida pretty early in the evening, worth a whopping 30 electoral votes. And Florida voted no on Amendment 3, which means that recreational marijuana will not be legalized here in the state, and that the state of Florida will not be adding it to its constitution. And this is because it did not receive at least 60% of approval from Florida voters. And I was one of the voters who voted no on that. And the state also voted against Amendment 4, which would have allowed the 6-week abortion ban to be lifted. I voted against that as well. But it was such a great night. I believe Trump won all of the swing states. He won Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and lastly, Wisconsin, which decided the election. And I heard there were a lot of Amish voters who turned out in the state of Pennsylvania. And the Amish generally do not vote in elections. But the Amish did vote this time, mainly for agricultural reasons. And from what I've heard, they all voted for Trump. I was really hoping that Illinois would turn red. Because of what was happening in the city of Chicago with current Mayor Brandon Johnson. Maybe some of you are not familiar with what's going on in Chicago. Brandon Johnson essentially bankrolled the migrants who were bused, flown, and dropped off into black neighborhoods and taking over. They were given money, food, shelter, clothing, resources upon resources, which was detrimental to the long-term residents who had been there. If you're interested in this story, you can find out more about it on YouTube. I'm sure you can find several videos about it. And there was a massive black voter turnout for Trump. It's not that most of us are crazy about Donald Trump and the Republicans, but we are fed up with being taken for granted by the Democrats and their policies harming us. And hats off to black men who decided to stand on business and vote on policy and courageously walk away from the Democrats. And this has nothing to do with misogyny. There are a lot of people, especially your people like the Reverend Al Sharpton, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama even too, I believe, and several others who are saying that black men are just being misogynistic. No, it's not that. The truth is that the Democrats have never done anything for not only black men, but for blacks. And it makes no sense for them to continue to support the Democrats when they continue to do for everyone else and do nothing for blacks who are still, even after this election, their most loyal voting bloc. But it's definitely a new day. A lot of us are waking up. I woke up back in 2015 and I have not gone back since. When we were saying that we're not going to turn out for the Democrats in this election, they thought that they would call our bluff. But the joke's on them. And they have only themselves to blame for this. Had they done right by us and implemented policies for us, sure, we would love to support them. But they did not do that. They have never done that. But it was really wonderful to hear and see the voices of the American people voting Joe Biden and Kamala Harris out of office. Their administration was given the chance to do right by us, the American people, Instead, they only cared about their interests and doing whatever they wanted to do to keep themselves in power and enrich their constituents and donors. I watched the election on YouTube. I watched on my TV set and on my iPad because I wanted to have a visual of the electoral map and the states that were being called and projected, and also listen to podcasts of individuals covering the election and giving their commentary on the election. It was mainly the news coverage that they were reacting to, but it was more interesting hearing their points of views rather than the mainstream legacy media. Seeing the blue wall come tumbling down and the red wave flowing through gave me a sense of hope and optimism. I know that the Republicans have never done anything specifically for blacks either, but there are a lot of us of all ethnicities who are struggling, who have been struggling over the last nearly 4 years now. And having the chance to heal and rebuild our lives again is a great feeling. I don't know what Trump's second term is going to be like. None of us really know. Compared to the Biden-Harris administration and Trump's first term, his term was a lot better. I would choose Trump any day over them. And even if you feel unsure, you feel uncertain right now, just remember that there's nothing that has happened to you that you cannot recover from. Or as Kamala Harris would say, to be unburdened by what has been. I stayed up until the wee hours of the morning because I knew that I would not be able to get to sleep, not knowing the final results of the election. And the next morning, I woke up feeling a sense of relief that the election was now all done and over with, and that the candidate that I voted for won. That has not happened since 2012 when I voted for Barack Obama for his second term. My parents, who are baby boomers and Democrats, were disappointed with the outcome of the election and said that things were going to become really bad for us. My response was, no, I'm sure things will be all right. I didn't want to get into any type of debate about anything. I wasn't in the mood. Another reason why the Democrats lost, a lot of us chose to stay home, to choose the couch. That played a big part in Donald Trump winning too, and Kamala Harris losing. Those are votes that she did not get. So let the blame games begin. As I said before, the Democrats only have themselves to blame. As per usual, they've already started blaming black men. They even have black women blaming black men for Kamala Harris losing. But when have the Democrats ever shown up for us? Yesterday, I saw a video of the Reverend Al Sharpton on MSDNC. I believe he said something, and don't quote me on this, but I know he said something to this effect, that Americans who voted for Donald Trump are misogynist and racist. So according to him, the majority, because Trump did win the popular vote, the majority of Americans who voted, that includes people of all nationalities, are misogynist and racist. Give me a break. You know, the Reverend Al Sharpton, he is a Democrat operative. People like him, their job is to deliver the black vote. But now, maybe the Democrats will realize that people like him are no longer relevant, no longer necessary. And dare I say it, even Barack Obama. Him berating those black men actually hurt the Democrats more and did more damage to his legacy. I believe that Americans who voted for Donald Trump voted on policy and what we believe to be better for our lives and this country. Regardless of your political position, Americans have suffered under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and the Democrats still refuse to address the elephant in the room. They're the problem. They're the ones to blame. They're the reason why they lost this election. They installed an unqualified candidate and ran a lousy campaign running on abortion. And she avoided the media doing any type of interviews for 2 months. And then at the last minute decides to go on a media blitz. Too little, too late. And she essentially had no real policy. Everything that she said was vague. She didn't like to answer questions. She had a problem with that. And what really revealed that she was unfit to be president was the night of the election. She did not address her audience, her supporters who came to her event at Howard University. She didn't give a speech. She didn't make an appearance. Instead, she sends out some guy. I think he was her campaign chair. I don't know, but the Kamala Harris camp, compared to the Trump camp, the Kamala Harris camp was very sloppy. His camp knew how to market. He worked a shift at McDonald's. He rode in a garbage truck with a campaign banner on it on the side after Joe Biden calls his supporters garbage. So Trump is a master at marketing himself, and his campaign was well ran this time around. Not to mention that the media, they helped a lot too. The lawfare that was going on against him, the assassination attempts, the raid at Mar-a-Lago a couple years ago, the mugshot. Have you ever seen anything quite like this before? I don't know if we'll ever see anything. Hopefully we will not see anything like this in our lifetime. But for those of us who were brave enough to take a stand against the Democrats, I'm sure there were a lot of you out there who were read the riot act by friends and family, but you stood up for what you knew to be right. And that does not mean that Donald Trump is perfect. But no more will we accept nothing in return for our vote. We want tangibles. We want policies that strengthen us and benefit our communities. And if you continue to fail to do that, well, we can be equally as comfortable or equally as uncomfortable. You decide. The choice is up to you. Candidates like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are lousy candidates who run awful campaigns. The Democrats have gone too far left. It's time to regroup. As I said in the other video, the Democratic Party of today is nothing like the Democratic Party of yesteryear. So if they want to win elections in the future, they'll need to make some changes. They must. For one, you must have policies for blacks. We have been your most loyal voting bloc. Also, you can't be too far left. Illegal immigration, that is not in the best interest of the American people. I understand that people want to come here for better lives, but it has to be done in a way that does not hurt Americans legally. Otherwise, you're going to take away resources from the citizens of the country, and it's going to hurt the country like it already has. So, as I said before, I'm glad that the election is now officially over. It was very taxing, but well worth the outcome. I cannot guarantee that things will get better, but that is what most of us are hoping and praying for. People want to be able to take care of their families. People want to be able to afford the bare necessities of life, food, shelter, and clothing. And some luxuries too. There's nothing wrong with wanting that for yourself too. To not leave a lesser world to those who come after us. Our time is now. Let's change the world. Thank you for watching, everyone.